So I'm filling in for Cam because she's on vacation this week.
Yeah.
And our guest is Louise Jenkins.
Louise Jenkins is a mother to 4 boys, grandma to 13 grandchildren, a nurse specialized in emergency medicine and trauma, neurology, specifically stroke care. Louise is also a stroke survivor of 26 years. She suffered a stroke on February 1, 1995, when she was working as a flight nurse. Louise knows firsthand how stroke survivors and families do not receive the one-to-one time and support they should. How survivors were looked at differently and felt the strong passion to help change that.
My name is Louise, and I'm a stroke survivor of about 26 years now, 26 and a half years. I'm also a registered nurse, so I kind of look at stroke from both sides. Although I don't have all the experiences of everyone else because everyone has a different, experience with their stroke. I feel that it's been a blessing to me to be able to understand both sides better. Currently, I'm not actively nursing in a hospital anymore. I gave that up. COVID ran me away. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I am a nursing professor with Clark College. I do part-time teaching and clinical rotation with students there. And I'm also a forensic nurse specialist. I provide forensic examinations to survivors of domestic violence, assault, and strangulation. So I'm semi-retired because I get to pick my own hours now, pretty much, and I'm enjoying life. And I'm happy to be here today to talk with everybody. And I appreciate questions and feedback, and because Ann and I are talking about doing some other things.
Yeah, and the point of this show today is really to reach out to people who are early, who've just had their stroke or brain injury fairly recently. And so we're talking about that period right after it happens. They put you through a certain amount of rehab. And then what happens? What's it like to be sent home with a stroke? What was it like for you, Louise?
It was lonely. It was really lonely. My stroke happened in the part of my brain that had to do with my balance ability. So I did not display any physical weakness. I could walk fine. I just walked wobbly because my balance wasn't there. I would tend to stumble. I had trouble on stairs, but I had no physical weakness. I could swallow fine. I could speak fine. My vision was affected a little bit because of the part of the brain it was in. But I went home with exercises to do. I was in rehab for, I think, a week, maybe 2 weeks, and they taught me, my exercises were stand on one foot, hold on to a chair and stand on one foot and see if you can let go and things like that. So I tried the exercises, and we lived in a pretty rural area at the time, so it was really lonesome because I didn't know anyone around that had a stroke. I mean, I was just turned 40, and I was frightened even as a nurse because my nursing history up to that time was in emergency medicine and disaster preparedness, and I was a flight nurse. So my whole mindset for a stroke, this was back before TPA, before the urgent intervention. My whole thought on stroke was, let's get this person out of my ER because I need the bed for somebody else. And that was about all I really knew. I did not work with any stroke survivors or know any up until that point.
Would anyone else like to share what it was like in those early days?
Well, I tend to just go on and on and on. So I'll try to keep it within reason. But for Louise, I'm just surprised that as in nursing and and then your unique discipline. You're having a stroke, and there's nothing in your head that you can reach out and hook on to try to make sense of something. And I say it because I'm a retired lawyer, and I kind of like drank the Diet Cokes about lawyers. We're supposed to know a whole lot of stuff about a whole lot of stuff. And here I am in the middle of a stroke, and I've got nothing in my head, in my experience, in my background, in my network that I could reach out and latch on to try to make sense of, why can't I do thus and such? Why can't I figure out X? Why can't I see through therapeutic care where all of this therapy is going? And I just couldn't grab it. And so so one of the things that happened to me, matter of fact, the very first thing I remember happening to me after my stroke is, anybody that had the cross and the snake, I hate it with a passion.
Really, the caduceus.
Yeah, I hate it with a passion. I had just passed PASSED, right? My annual physical. My stroke was in February. My physical was in December. Everything was green light, no caveats, no cautions. You're doing great. And then less than 60 days, because February is not a 30-day month, I find myself in a hospital. And so I couldn't wait to get to my primary care to jump in her stuff. You just saw all of my x-rays. You saw all of my lab work. You put me through the stress tests. I wasn't doing the nuclear medicine and actually get up there on that doggone machine. And you mean to tell me you didn't see this coming?
No.
I considered it to be the equivalent of medical malpractice, and I was going to do something about it. That's how I felt about the onset of stroke. And then I go through the stuff, and I'm finally, pushed out of the hospital in my wheelchair. I'm happy as all get out to leave the place, but I'm worse off, because I don't know. You see, if you don't know where you're coming from, you sure don't know where you're going. And I didn't know where I was coming from. I just knew I was on the other side of the door. It was always a goal of mine to get out of here, even if I had to escape, and that was not beyond me. I'm going to get out of here. So I'm just surprised, unless I misunderstood you, Louise, that your medical anything, ER anything, medical anything, kind of like caught you by surprise. I would have.
Absolutely, Hirsch, you have it. I mean, I was a highly trained flight nurse, and I
Yeah.
could take care of somebody dying. I could, I can take care of critically ill people. But my nursing school, when I took the neurology and I had to do the stroke work there, I learned it. And to me, a stroke showed you had a weakness somewhere, the face, arms, speech, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
When I had the onset of dizziness, I was getting into the shower. It was 6:18 in the morning, and I had turned the shower on, and there I was naked as a jaybird, and all of a sudden I just had this, I couldn't find the floor. So I laid down on the floor thinking, oh my gosh, you're hypoglycemic, because all I had had was coffee, before that. It never, ever entered my mind that I was having a stroke. There was no pain, I just knew it was hypoglycemia until it stayed and stayed and stayed. And even when I got to the hospital, they were they scanned everything from here to my knees and looked and said, "You have the flu."
What?
I had no idea I had a stroke until 2 days later when they did the ultrasound of my arteries.
Wow.
So
Dude.
it hit me totally by surprise. I had no idea what it was. No, and neither did the hospital when I first went in.
So, Louise, you then
Mhm.
went back to work
Mhm.
with a different job, I understand,
Mhm.
and thought about bringing survivors into hospital rooms.
Mhm.
So just tell us about how you developed the ambassador program.
Well, once I did go back to work, I still don't have fine dexterity as well as I did. So I was a grounded nurse. I had to work in the hospital, and we left. This was in Missouri, and we moved here to Washington, to Vancouver. And I did the ER a while, and then came the opportunity to the hospital was building a certified stroke center. This was in 2004, when certification of stroke centers was brand new. They were just coming into their glory in the United States. And so I applied for the job as the coordinator of the program. All I'd ever done was the ER and the flight nurse stuff. And well, I was a trauma coordinator, and they hired me. I was surprised, and I loved it. I went in, there was no neurology specialty program at the hospital, and I worked with a team of neurologists, neurosurgeons, neurospecialists, to build the stroke center in Vancouver. And after we became certified, 10 months later, I believe it was, um, my first need was help with data entry. And so there was one man, his name was Al, and he was a volunteer with the hospital. And Al wanted to help somebody, and I said, well, I'll teach him how to do data entry. And so Al came, and he was a very large man, and he had fingers like sausages, and he was trained to do this on a computer. And that's how the Stroke Ambassador program actually started, was with one person helping me doing data entry. And he wasn't a stroke survivor, but his wife had had a stroke, and she had passed away a few years before. And I talked to him, and I said, do you think you would be able to go to patient rooms in the hospital? I'd go with you and just talk to people, talk to the patients if they want to talk to you, or talk to the family if they want to. And if you go in and they tell you they don't want to talk to you, you just say thank you and leave. And so he tried a couple, and he he felt shy. I guess he was more shy than anything. And then at about 2005 or 6, when did we meet? When did you move here?
I think we moved here in 2006.
Yeah, so in 2006, that lady right there came into my life, Joni.
Louise started the Stroke Ambassador program, which grew from one man to 4 ambassadors. Stroke ambassadors visited people and provided pre-made stroke survivor education. The time they sat at the bedside giving others the chance to ask questions from those who have been there and can empathize. Louise has spoken at national conferences about stroke ambassador programs, their benefit and challenges. At least 3 facilities have started their own stroke ambassador program since Boston, St. Louis, and a rural hospital in Oklahoma. Louise met Joni about 2009, a brave stroke survivor who eventually took over Louise's role to run the group. Today the stroke group she started has grown to over 200 members and meets weekly on Zoom for now. We are family.
We met, the first time we met was at the stroke group in Disability Resources.
Right. Okay. There used to be a place in Vancouver called Disability Resources, and they had a stroke support group, and we met there and just hit it off. And I talked to Joni, and I said, Joni, she's a survivor. And I said, what do you think about this? And she said, I love it. And so she came, and we put a solid stake in the ground for the Stroke Ambassador program. And it developed over time, and I put together this book. You can't see it because I'm on this weird screen, but it's the guidebook.
Yeah, sure, there's a book there.
And it's a simple book. It's got like job description of what a stroke ambassador is. And a stroke ambassador is a person who, first of all, you have to be a volunteer with the hospital. So you have to do the training for the hospital to come in. You have to have the immunizations. You have to get a yearly evaluation and such and stuff like that. You have to be medically cleared to do this by your physicians, any of your PCP or your neurologist, whatever works best. Um, and then you have to do a training. And I've set up this little training that um, I would usually work with someone one-on-one, and it would be an hour or two. And then a lot of it, though, the training is in self-care because as a stroke survivor, depression, a lot of people develop depression. Um, and if you're constantly meeting new people who just had a stroke or their family who has no idea what's going on, all of that on top of any problems that you might have going on can be an awful lot to bear. So I talk a lot about self-care, self-realization, and we started out with Joni and Al, and I think, what did we get up to, about six at once, Joni? Six?
And we had Dave
Yeah,
and Daniel,
yeah,
Dan, and Suki
yeah. And Holly.
and Holly. Well, no, Holly never did it.
Oh, okay. And you, there's six. Well, we had about 6 or 8 stroke ambassadors at the highest, and they would schedule times to come into the hospital, maybe for a couple of hours. And we made sure that they didn't come on the same day, so different days were covered. And they would visit patients in the hospital who had had a stroke and their survivors. I just talk to them about and say, hey, I've been here. If you want to talk, I'll talk to you. If not, I'll sit here with you. Sometimes I know they have read books to patients. They have talked with families. And it's just that taking that extra time that the healthcare staff does not have time to sit down at the bedside. And they go in, healthcare goes in with a reason. I'm here to give you this medicine, or I'm here to do your therapy appointment, or I'm here to do something, and then I have to move on. Well, the nice thing about stroke ambassadors, and I know they would go into a room and maybe spend an hour there, you know, and they really connected heart to heart with people. And that made our stroke support group grow. And we started out meeting once a month and had good turnouts. We'd have anywhere from 10 to 20 or more people come to our stroke support groups, but we always had break apart groups, one for the survivors, and at the same time the caregivers would go to another room with a social worker or a case manager, and because we had the strong feeling that people needed to talk with other people going through what they are. And granted, caregivers are wonderful, but they're not going through the actual stroke. And survivors don't have the view of being a caregiver. So that's why we had the breakout rooms. And then I've always been a big proponent of fun. I like to have fun when I work, and I think everybody should have fun doing something. So together, we developed a program called Take Your Brain Out to Play. And that's held at the hospital until COVID hit. It was held every year. And it is a day, well, it's about 6 hours long on a Saturday. And the focus of it is for survivors and caregivers to come and learn one new thing and make one new friend. That's the whole goal that I set the premise on, to have one new friend and one new thing. And the new thing was usually something fun. We have like you learn rock painting. We have rocks and paint there and somebody there to help you to paint a rock. You can plant a container garden. Joni's husband makes these cute paper planters out of a thick paper roll. What else do we do, Joni? We do container gardening, coloring, backstrokes. We've done line dancing. We've done chair, tai chi.
Yep.
We have talks about self-care. We have massages, and it's free. All you have to do is come. and enjoy it. That's the goal of it.
What
And
kind of responses have you had from people?
they love it. Joni, what do you say?
Yeah, they love it.
Yeah.
Mm.
We have gone out to local businesses at some points and asked for donations, like for door prizes and stuff, and they've been very um, compliant with that. They've given us stuff for door prizes, and food places have donated food for, to have out, and so and we've always held it at the hospital, so it's a cost-effective thing. But the people that come, no matter how skeptical they are when they come in, everybody smiles. Everybody
Yes.
walks away with a smile or crying because they're happy, and then we have a little place set aside with just pencil and paper called the Network Lounge, where people can sit down and take a break. And when somebody sits down next to you or across the table that you don't know, talk to them, share phone numbers, and so it's a very fun day. It's a very productive day, even though it's not expensive. It can be time consuming, but it's worth it. And Joni has taken over. I left the hospital in Vancouver probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Has it been that long? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it's been close to 6 years, and I work in Portland now. And Joni took over the stroke ambassadors. She and the coordinator, whoever the coordinator was at the time, they've had a couple. The coordinator just kind of gets the rooms for the stroke meetings and helps with the logistics and stuff. But Joni is the one who has taken on the responsibility of the communications for the support group. For the Take Your Brain Out to Play, she and the coordinator work together on that. And I think that's a very important part of a support group if you want to expand and grow your membership, have fun doing it, and do what people want and what people say they need is to have self-ownership. I think that group needs to have self-ownership. One person can lead it like Joni does, but she needs help. And Joni, talk to us about the fits. Tell us what a fit is.
Oh, I wish
And
I brought one with me. I've got
yeah,
a
I don't have one
million in
here.
the house. We have a little fit. It's a little square thing that's made with fabric, and then we stuff it with those little balls that are in bean bags.
Mhm.
The foam beads.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, and then we have a fill the fit party. We have Ruby sews them all, and then we have a fill the fit party at my house.
Who
And-
decorates them?
Well, now we've got stamps, but we used to decorate them with fabric paint,
Mhm.
and it would say fit. Let's see what Gary
Friends in
touch.
touch.
friends in touch, and don't get mad, throw a fit.
Mhm.
So it's like you can throw a fit, instead of
You can just throw it at someone. If
kind
you,
of like a damn it doll.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it fits in your hand. It's like a palm size.
and so I would tell people, I said, yeah, you can toss them at your doctors or your nurses, whatever you get frustrated. Well, then I had a nurse come up to me one day and she says, we just had a meeting on workplace violence. And I was like, oh, shit. But anyway.
The other thought process on the fits are they fit in your palm and they're light. So we thought you could use them like to toss them back and forth, for dexterity. You can toss them up and down. You can squeeze them. You can use them as a rest for a paretic arm. There's a lot of uses for them because I started out with what can be useful. And then because we tried beans at first and that didn't work out.
Oh,
And
there,
then,
right there.
oh, there's one.
yeah. Did you
Oh,
get
it's
one?
so pretty.
Yes.
See?
Awesome.
There it is. Yeah.
Ruby's mother used to draw those beautiful birds on them, on all of them. And so they're like a piece of artwork.
Tim, aren't you the one that came up with Friends in Touch?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was your idea. We wanted to take the word fit and make it appropriate, and Tim came up with that. So
Gary is the one that said, don't get mad, throw a fit.
yeah. So that's how it developed, and it all comes from the group, and it's a lot of fun. So that's the story of the ambassadors. And
Wow.
when COVID lets up, I'm sure Joni will be back in there with them. And
I,
I'll still be helping with Take Your Brain Out to Play.
they asked me to go back and I told them no, because well, then this other variant came by and I think I would have been kicked out anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm babysitting my grandbaby and then my daughter is pregnant. So I didn't, she works at OHSU as a respiratory therapist, and I figured they don't need any more germs besides hers. Another, if I brought in all the hospital germs, so I'm gonna not do it for a while. But I really miss it.
Yeah.
I
It's a very, very important part of the stroke program, and it has won accolades throughout the country. I spoke at a conference, and I know of 4 or 5 other centers in the United States that wanted to start a program, and I helped them get going. I don't know if they're still going, but it's a very engaging process.
yeah, when COVID first hit, I was just like lost. I mean, that
Mhm.
stroke ambassador is what I do.
Hmm.
And I couldn't do anymore. And I thought it was a weird feeling. But then my first grandchild came along, so that gave me something to do. But
Lee, you had a question. This will be our last question. We're going to wrap up after this. But Lee, you had posed a question to me about, and I'm wondering if Joni and Louise have some experience. You had, do you remember your question that you sent me?
Yeah. When I had my stroke, I couldn't talk at all. And they did some testing and they showed me pictures and I named what they showed me, and I could only name 25%. And so how do you fix that, and how do you give the stroke person courage to fix it?
Joni, you experienced that.
yeah, I only couldn't speak for 2 weeks, but I couldn't speak at all. And they would
Yeah.
do that they would lay things in front of me and I would have to identify them, and I couldn't pick out a spoon, or a toothpick or whatever, So, but it's really me as an ambassador. I would, since I had experience with that, I say it's going to get better. I don't ever say that you'll be completely back to your normal, but it's going to get better, because it does get better. But because don't you agree, Lee, that you got better and you're not
Yes,
same
but
as
I didn't believe it.
yeah. Well, I was living proof that I could, because I was walking in the hospital and talking to people, and I just encourage them, just like you can always get better.
I'd like to throw in, there are 2 components to the speech. There's aphasia and dysarthria. One's content, the aphasia is the content, and then the dysarthria is the clarity of the speech. And but back up. Lee, I want to say how wonderful you're doing.
I'm trying.
Yeah, you're doing wonderful. And when a part of your brain is injured, say from a stroke, some of it does not heal back. Some brain cells are damaged so much they can't. But then your brain, God has given us this wonderful ability to retrain parts around there. you know? And that's why you can continually get better. It won't be, like Joni said, back to original maybe, but you can get better. And I know when I had my stroke, my neurologist said, "Oh, well, it's been a year. You're as good as you're going to get. You're not going to get any better." Right? And I thought, oh my gosh, I still use a walking stick a lot of times, you know, just to find the ground. And that's a bunch of baloney.
It is.
It is baloney. Tim, are you here
Yes,
still?
I am.
Yes.
Could would you be able to tell the group about your aerobics your water aerobics?
I was not in water aerobics.
What were you in?
Nothing that I know about.
Darwin.
Oh, that was Darwin. That was Darwin. Yeah. Okay. So, well, we had a stroke survivor,
Is
and
one of the ambassadors too.
one of the
Tim.
ambassadors. And after so long, his insurance said, "You're done. You're no more rehab, no more therapy. You're done. You're as good as you're going to get." And he was one like me that said, "That's bull." And he had paralysis of, I think his right arm. Yeah.
Right on.
And he went to water aerobics. Well, first of all, he taught himself how to ride the bus system with transfers. This was in Vancouver. And he took it to the Mary, that fitness center over on 164.
It's
YWCA?
no. Oh shoot, it's a really nice
It's a fitness center, and it's got a library now. Furstenberg.
Yeah,
that's no, he did it in that
Anyway, he
yes.
the what?
I think it's closed. That's closed, I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's got a big library there now too. Anyway, he went there.
Furstenberg Center?
I think it's Furstenberg, Mary Furstenberg, yeah. He taught himself to take buses there, and then he joined a water aerobics class and did this like 2 or 3 times a week. And I'll never forget, we knew he was doing something. And we were at one of our stroke support groups in the evening, and he was there, and I think his wife was there with him. And he said, "I want to show you something." Now, this was years after his stroke. He stood up, and he took his right hand, and he slowly raised it, and he put it on his heart and said the Pledge of Allegiance. There was not a dry eye in that room. It's not. It was wonderful. And remember that, Joni?
I don't remember that specific.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
It was wonderful. And so don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't get better, you can't improve. Just keep at what you're doing to make yourself better. Right, Gary?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. On that note, I'd like to wrap up our recording. And thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to stop recording now.